Hello, critical thinkers. Hope all is well. Welcome, 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 and thank you for being here tonight. We are live. We are live. Okay. So tonight we're having a very interesting topic. Okay. Many people have spoken about whether the job of a correction officer, whether the role of a correction officer is dangerous. Okay, so I wanted to do my own research about this topic myself. Give me 1 second. I think I'm having some technical struggle streaming already, as they say. Okay, give me 1 quick second. Let me do one thing to try to fix this problem with the camera. Let's go high definition 720. Here we go. Okay, so this should be better. Okay, guys, welcome, welcome, welcome to the stream. Welcome to Critical Conversations HR for everyone who's here live on the chat. The thing I want to do first is if you can please do me a favor, and if you can like this stream, like the video, if you can share it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you feel compelled to, we greatly appreciate your donations, as we are 100% independent, which allows me to give you the opinions that I have without being filtered. So the topic of whether the job of a correction officer is dangerous. So first and foremost, I do want to acknowledge, yes, there is some level of dangerousness when it comes to working as a correction officer in New York State. That goes without saying. The potential of harm is there. What I'm more interested in is whether the stats and the data says otherwise in terms of the level of dangers that correction officers face. So I decided to do my own research, and in part, I went through data and stats from the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. I'm going to be posting in the description the links so you can check these resources out yourself. So tonight is going to be a little bit nerdy. I'm going to be showing you a little PowerPoint presentation going over whether the job of a correction officer in New York State is dangerous, fact or fiction. And at the end, I want you to come up with your own determination, and you let me know what you think and whether you agree with my observations. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my my deck here. Okay, you move a little bit to the side. Okay, so we're going over whether the job of a New York State correction officer is dangerous or not. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is, as a community, we have to define the word dangerous. So here is how I am defining the word dangerous. And the definition is able or likely to cause harm, injury, or death. So when you look up the word dangerous, many definitions don't have the word death in the definition. I decided to put that in there because for me, truly dangerous jobs have higher probabilities of death. So the first level of research I did was looking into the New York State correctional officer line of duty deaths. How many correction officers? Because we're hearing the media, we're hearing protesting several months ago. Correctional officers state how dangerous the job is, the number of injuries they receive, so on and so forth. So I wanted to do my own research, and let me show you what I found. Okay, so I looked back the last 25 years, 10 months, and 15 days. If you want to round it up slightly, I went back 26 years. And at the bottom here is where I have the link to where you're able to find this information. So the number of line of duty deaths due to an interaction with an incarcerated individual. I'm only interested in correctional officers who died because of an interaction with an incarcerated individual. And guess what? 0 deaths. There has been 0 deaths in close to 26 years of correctional officers serving New York State. 0 deaths. 0 deaths. And again, if you want to go back and see the source at the bottom here, I will put a link in the chat and in the description, just so you know. There's been 0 deaths. Okay, I've said that like 4 or 5 times, but I just want to emphasize to you the number of deaths, which in turn for me decreases the level of danger. So the last death that occurred of a correctional officer occurred on August 1st, 1999. The correctional officer's name was Frank Midlars. This occurred in Great Meadow Correctional Facility, and unfortunately, he suffered a heart attack after subduing an incarcerated individual. During this look-back period, the 25 years and 10 months and X number of days, there were also 3 other line of duty deaths. All 3, 1999, 2009, and 2011, all of these 3 deaths occurred because of an automobile accident with transporting an incarcerated individual or individuals. So in terms of danger, when we think of danger, what makes something dangerous is the potential for injury. So I was curious to see or look at the injuries suffered by correctional officers in the line of duty. And mind you, these numbers, this data is strictly from DOCCS website. There's a link at the bottom. I will share that later again. Now, for those of you who don't know, the New York State Department of Corrections on a monthly basis puts out monthly statistics in which it reviews prison safety, assaults, injuries to incarcerated individuals, injuries to staff, and also it includes numbers on the population, the prison population, and also staffing. There's staffing numbers in there as well. That's important to note. What these numbers do not include, and I definitely want to emphasize this for everyone. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who just joined, if you guys can please do me a favor, please like the stream, share it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hopefully the audio is coming out good and the video quality is coming out good. If the audio or video is not great, please let me know in the chat below and I'll see if I can fix it. But it seems to be good on my end. So going back to the PowerPoint deck, what these numbers do not include that I'm going to share with you and what DOCCS produces for the world, it does not include in their numbers. They do not include the numbers of assaults, excessive force, torture of incarcerated individuals by DOCCS staff. I am unable to locate a source that has that comprehensive information. I believe the Marshall Project may have this. I'll do more research to see what I can find. But DOCCS themselves do not produce numbers of excessive force, torture from staff to incarcerated individuals. And you would think, obviously, they're not going to tell on themselves. In addition to this, the numbers of homicides of incarcerated individuals by DOCCS staff is not reported in their data. For example, we know about Robert Brooks, we know about Messiah Nantry, and there are other incarcerated individuals who have died by the hands of correction officers. Those numbers are not reported on in their data. And obviously, you would not expect them to report on their own crimes. So it's not going to be in these stats. One thing I want to do quickly is go over some definitions. Go over some definitions for us to understand, because we can't begin to have a conversation a genuine conversation unless we understand what these certain items mean. So these definitions come directly from the New York State Department of Corrections. So the Department of Corrections defines assault, and I think they have a very interesting definition of what an assault is. This is their definition of what assault is. Unlike the penal law, where physical injury is a required element, any attack by an incarcerated individual is classified by DOCCS as an assault. This includes events where no physical injury occurs and events where any object, including a small object, is thrown at and hits another person. By contrast, in the penal law, an assault requires physical injury, which means impairment of physical condition or substantial pain. Also, to add to this, I've interviewed incarcerated individuals that have told me they've been written up and charged with assault because they mean mugged or they looked at a correctional officer in an intimidating way. They've classified that as an assault as well. Injuries. One thing I want to do quickly is look at the definition of injuries. So New York State DOCCS has 5 classifications, 5 types of injuries. The first is no injury, minor injury, moderate injury, serious injury, and severe injury. Now let's go into these four classifications. No injury is obvious, but let's go into what they classify as a minor injury. Injuries that require either no treatment, minimal treatment, scratch, bruise, aches, pains, or precautionary treatment. Precautionary treatment might even be an aspirin. Moderate injury is defined as an injury such as lacerations, concussions, second-degree burns, serious sprains, dislocation, and muscle or ligament damage. That is what DOCCS defines as moderate injury. Serious injuries is defined as injuries that require transport to an outside hospital that are not considered life-threatening at the preliminary report. And lastly, severe injury. Severe injury is defined as injuries that cause obvious disfigurement, protracted impairment of health, loss or impairment of organ function, amputation, and injuries that require, and injuries that risk cause of death. These are the 5 classifications of injuries. And for the sake of my assessment, we're going to be looking at those 5 classifications. So there are 4 data periods that I reviewed. I looked at data from March 2025, April 2025, May 2025, and also we looked at the current calendar year, which is January 1st, 2025 to May 31st, 2025. One important thing to note is that the recorded assaults on staff for the calendar year January 1st to May 31st are 785 recorded assaults on staff so far. In my opinion, obviously, these numbers are grossly inflated. Multiple stories that I've covered here in which incarcerated individuals were attacked by correction officers and bogus assault on staff charges were filed against those. I think of Christopher Keeles. I think of Keon Walker. I think of who else was there? I think Robert Brooks. They were attempting to falsify some reporting as well. So we know these numbers are not actual. These numbers are inflated. They're inflated. Also, as I mentioned before, we spoke about the falsified reporting, which is a common practice amongst New York State Department of Correctional Officers in terms of falsified reporting. And then one thing that skews these numbers is the definition of assault. We went over the definition of assault, and there is a vague definition of assault, and it's grossly misused. Now, these are the recorded injuries on staff that are reported on staff for March of 2025. There were a total of 849 reported injuries, okay? Oh, and by the way, these are recorded injuries on staff. I am only going over these numbers that pertain to assaults on correctional officers from incarcerated individuals. Again, these numbers are only on assaults, the quote unquote assaults on correctional officers from incarcerated individuals. I am not going over any sort of injuries that have resulted from correctional officers attempting to break up assaults on other incarcerated individuals. So we have here for the month of March of 2025, out of 849 quote unquote recorded injuries, 77% no injury whatsoever. No injury whatsoever. We also have another, in terms of minor injuries, which includes preventative treatment, and it's another 19%, right? 19%. So if you do the math here, this is about 96.8%. Close to 97% of injuries are either no injury or minor injuries. And then if we take a look at the reported injuries that fall into the moderate category, 23%. 23, which means 0.02% are injuries that are considered moderate. Serious injuries, it drops even further, which is 0.003% are considered serious, in which there were 3 for the month of March. And then you have severe, none. No severe injuries for the month of March, 0%, zero. Now, let's go over April of 2025. In April of 2025, there were 804 recorded injuries on staff. And again, I'm going over the recorded injuries on staff that pertain to attacks of correctional officers by an incarcerated individual. 804 recorded injuries, no injury whatsoever, 659. That's 81.9%. If you look at the minor category, 130 reported injuries, 16.1%. So if we do the math, okay, so we're looking at 98% of recorded injuries are either no injury whatsoever or minor. 98%. 98%. So for me right now, the level of dangerousness with this level of job seems very low to me. Now let's take a look at moderate, even fewer. Moderate, 15 cases, 15 reported injuries, which is it's 0.01%. Serious and severe, both 0%. 0%. These are absolutely low numbers. So if we look at no injury and minor, this by itself is 98% of recorded injuries by incarcerated individuals to staff, 98%. Very, very high, no injury or minor injury. Now, let's take a look at the month of May, last month, 2025. 864 recorded injuries on staff, no injury whatsoever, 611, 70.7%. So no injury whatsoever, 70.7%. Minor injuries, 234, 27.0%. So we are looking at 97.7% of injuries are either no injury whatsoever or minor. And these are supposedly attacks on correctional officers. In terms of for the month of May, moderate injury, 18, which is 0.02%. Serious injury, there was 1, which results in a percentage of 0.001%. And then severe injuries, 0%. 0%. So I want to just very quickly just remind everyone, if you can like the stream, do me that favor. If you could share it, subscribe to the channel, all that commercial stuff, it really, really helps. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to donate to the channel. You can feel free to send a super chat, super thanks, Cash App, Critical Convo, HR. I wanted, before I move on to another slide, just go over a couple of quick comments here. All right, I'll pull up Sean. Sean says the job is way more dangerous with the men that were falsely charged by law enforcement, and dirty DAs run with the lies of the dirty police. That should create very dangerous incarcerated people. Yeah, I agree. You know, you would hope that if someone is falsely accused, hopefully they can try to appeal and get good legal representation, which every person has the right for that, but not everyone can afford it. So Sean, thank you for commenting. Sean also says we citizens and families should have around the clock accountability, video accountability of the whole prison. Very little privacy for prison workers real time. I agree with you 100%, 1,000%. Sunset says true. My friend's Bill was in for 20 years in New York State. He said that when the new COs first started, they attacked inmates. The goal, go out on disability. The CO attacked first. Now, Sunset, I'm glad you mentioned that. Several weeks ago, I did a live stream on workers' compensation fraud, and there's widespread workers' compensation fraud. And the thing that's ironic about workers' compensation fraud is that the bulk of the cases of correctional officer workers' compensation fraud do not include an interaction with an incarcerated individual, if you can believe that. Lucy Lang published a great report on the fraud, and I did a live stream about that. So go back and check my live streams. Check it out. So Sunset says, to be fair, to be a CO is dangerous in general, depending on the prison. Yes, I agree with you 1,000%, Sunset. To be in a correctional facility is a dangerous job, but the question is, to what degree is that level of danger? And that's why I was going through these numbers here. Jim says it's all a show, no body cam, no job. I agree. Oh, Sunset says BIL is brother-in-law. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you for that. All right, let me go back to the deck. I have just a few more slides. So here are my conclusions regarding assaults and injuries. So here's my first conclusion. If these numbers are accurate that New York State DOCCS is producing, then that means for me that incarcerated individuals are failing at being able to assault and injure staff. You would think that prison is a very violent place. Prison has the roughest of men in these facilities. Why aren't more correctional officers being injured at much higher rates than what we're seeing here? Why? If these numbers are accurate, then that means that these incarcerated individuals, they're failing. They're like children not being able to actually harm COs. So for me, these numbers are not very accurate. Secondly, the definitions of assault and minor injuries skew the numbers. These numbers for me are skewed because of how they define what an assault is. For me, that definition doesn't work very well, to be honest with you. So my end result is this. The correctional officer role, being a highly dangerous job, is a work of fiction. Based on the numbers produced by DOCCS themselves, there are not high levels of injuries from assaults from incarcerated individuals. I'm not seeing that in the data. If you disagree with me, let me know in the chat. If you disagree with me, feel free to let me know in the chat. I'm open to hearing a difference of opinion. I'm okay with that. So one thing I'm going to do now very quickly is put the give me a second. I'm going to put a link if anybody wants to come on and give me their 2 cents on what they believe. If you disagree with me, if you believe that being a CO is a highly dangerous job in New York State, come on, let's have a conversation. I'd love to hear why you believe it. If you agree with me, if you want to come on as well, but I give preferential treatment to people who disagree. Okay. Um, so again, correctional officer being a highly dangerous job for me is fiction due to the data, due to the very low amount of injuries that occur. If you believe the mainstream media, you'd believe that correctional officers are being killed every other day in our correctional institutions, and that is not the case. So one thing I was interested in doing is looking at the assaults and deaths of incarcerated individuals, because there we truly see numbers that are sickening. Now, in terms of deaths, right? Again, this is some data I've mentioned before. The number of assaults, excessive force, torture of incarcerated individuals by doc staff is not reported in their fact sheets. You're not going to find this in their fact sheets. The numbers of homicides of incarcerated individuals by doc staff is not reported, obviously, in their fact sheets. They don't want this. I do know that the Marshall Project had compiled some data in terms of looking at the amount of OSI complaints that came in. Hopefully, I can do another live stream about what they reported, because I think that's definitely worth looking at. Okay. Now let's take a look at. Right now, we're only looking at January 1st, 2025 to May 31st, 2025. So far, just in 5 months, there's been 59 deaths of incarcerated individuals. 59 in the 26 years of reporting with docs. There's only been, there's been 0 correctional officers that have died in the line of duty. But here we have 59 individuals. Now let's take a look at their classifications. They've defined 19 cases, natural causes. Natural causes. We have 3 quote unquote suicides. And what's the most alarming, we have 37 deaths, 62.7% of 59 are classified as unknown. To add a little bit of transparency, in some cases, there is a waiting period in terms of the autopsy, the medical examiner's report. These things don't come out right away. But we have, just for the first 5 months of 2025, 59 deaths of incarcerated individuals. And the top 3 facilities are as follows. Coxsackie, you had 11 deaths so far for the year. In Mohawk Correctional, you have 8. In Wendy Correctional, you have 6. You have 6 so far. So, in my opinion, it's more you have more to fear as an incarcerated individual being killed by a correctional officer, being assaulted, being tortured by a CO, rather than a CO facing assaults from someone who's incarcerated. Now, I took this photo here from the Freelance, and this was from a protest that occurred. You have this image here of a CO, and then there was a sign saying, "This job is killing me." And here's what I think about that. I say, no, you are killing us. As we know, we have Robert Brooks killed in December of 2024. We have Messiah Nantry killed in March. We also have Adam Lafferty, who was killed in December of 2024 as well. I did a live stream about Adam Lafferty entitled "They Let Him Die." He predicted his death. In my opinion, he was set up. He was allowed to be killed by the hands of those who were incarcerated, but the COs wanted him dead. And then here at the bottom, we have Hector Camacho here, who died, who's I believe currently the medical examiner's report is listing it as unknown in terms of the cause of death, but his death was very suspicious. And these two gentlemen, I mean, basically all these gentlemen, we have to keep their stories alive. Hector Camacho, Adam Lafferty, we have to keep pushing until we get justice. Until we get justice. So that is the end. That's the end of my slide here. So I want to go over a couple of quick comments. I want to be fair to people. We have Jerry who says, I'm so sick and over these bad LEOs, but I love your channel. I always look for your channel. Thank you, Jerry. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for viewing. Appreciate that immensely. Linda Mitchell says, retired from New York State docks after 37 years and also had a brother serve over 10 years in docks. Docks is a dangerous place for both employees and inmates. Okay. Okay. Linda, Linda, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Cream O Ice says, do you think these numbers are real? As I mentioned before, Cream O Ice, I think these numbers are falsified. I think the assault numbers are significantly falsified. I mean, I can think of dozens of incarcerated individuals who have stories of having assault charges on them being thrown in the shoe based on bogus charges. So I think those numbers are not accurate, Cream. Sean says, I really need to bring this up. CC, got a loved one incarcerated and looking at Mother Nature. World affairs in the Bible. When, SHTF, I'm not sure what that means. When, shit hits the fan and people seek shelter, how are we going to get our loved one? Good question. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I had an answer for that. I really do. I really hope this is not end of times coming sooner. But it's not in our hands. It's in God's hands. Linda Mitchell says, frankly, I am surprised that these stories have gone so public. They usually don't, but this needs to be in the public eye. Linda, thank you for that comment. And my motivation behind this channel, there was an observation that the mainstream media is really not covering these stories. So I am a very small YouTuber. I have a little over 1,400 subscribers, very small, very grassroots, but I do believe that I do want to shed light on these stories, on these abuses, and on these atrocities. Free Cream of Ice. No wonder why they closed the downstate correctional facility. They were notorious in there. Correct. Yeah. Okay. All right, everyone. I don't have anyone who wants to come on. I'm going to put a link in the chat one last time. If anybody wants to come on and chop it up with me, if you disagree with me, by all means, I'd love to have you on. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a critical conversation, no pun intended. I put the link in the chat if you want to come on. If not, no worries. The thing I want to do very quickly is just for everyone who's on, if you have the opportunity, please like the video, share it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. For those of you who don't know, YouTube is not a big fan of this content. YouTube doesn't really push out these stories out tremendously. I'm not, reporting on Karen Reed. And mind you, that's a very important story as well. I'm not crapping on anyone who covers Karen Reed. That's a very important trial. I believe in supporting her defense. I believe she's innocent. Hopefully she will be acquitted tomorrow on all three counts, right? But the stories of those incarcerated are not popular. They're not sexy to a lot of people. So I really need your help to get this message out there. So if y'all can do me a favor, just like it, share this video with someone. If not this video, another video. So I really thank you for your support. Okay. So with that being said, I don't have anyone else coming on. So as I say in all of my videos, my goal is to go deeper than what the main is telling the story. Take care. God bless, and I will see you next time.